Hey everyone, a while back I did a video for a game called Epoch, and then the game actually became known as Vindication. Now Vindication was a game that was created by the geniuses over at Orange Nebula. Well, I don't know if they're geniuses or not, but I really like the game Vindication, or Epic as I know it. And they are kind of like a, I don't know, sometimes like I refer to, there are publishers that are like, they're publishers, right? They're like, oh, we're going to publish these games every year. And then there's like boutique publishers, I guess would be the way to put it. And these are the people that, like, they tend to have maybe one release a year, maybe two. And they tend to just focus on making that one game really big. Now, admittedly, Vindication only has like the one game and the expansion to that one game. So I don't know if Orange Nebula qualifies as a boutique publisher yet. But their newest game that they've created, called Unsettled, kind of, I think, is going in that process. Vindication was a superbly crafted game based upon, I remember when I got it, which, again, it was called Epic when I got it, or Epoch, or whatever you want to call that. It was kind of like, it was just, there's so many things about it that were just unlike other games that I had played, and it became a critic's darling, and a lot of people have played it and said it's like one of the best games I've ever played. But it's also one of those games that I don't think there's a lot of people that have actually played it, right? So is that weird? I don't know. I'll explain more about that when I get to my conclusion. But I was lucky enough to have a prototype of Unsettled given to me by the Orange Nebula people. They have then in turn given me like a lot of background about the game, and I've had lots of conversations with them. Really nice people. And I played the game now 3 times. Unsettled is about basically the last remaining crew members of a spaceship that go through a warp hole or something, or some strange cosmic event, and they end up like crash landing on a planet somewhere, somehow. And the planet will have different things that will want to prevent them from escaping, prevent them from being able to fix their ship and then take off. And well, I think, this is where it comes in, where I think the premise of the game is each one will be trying to be able to take off from this planet and survive, which might change with other planets, who knows. The puzzle that the planet is will be different each time. So I've only played with the one planet. It's a cooperative game where everybody works together, but there's lots of little funky little things that go on with each one. And I only, like I said, have the one planet, so I only have the one experience to go by. And that's the one that I used. And my game group and I, we played it like 3 times, because it took us the 3rd time to finally beat the game. And we really enjoyed the narrative that the game gave to us, and we really enjoyed the gaming experience. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of just show you the game from the last time we played it, roughly just about a half hour, 45 minutes after everybody else had left. I left the game setting up. I had to move stuff around a little bit for it to all fit on the camera. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things and the processes of the game. And then we're going to come back here, as always, and I'm just going to give you my final thoughts and tell you why I think this is going to be a game that lots of people are going to want to play, but maybe lots of people won't. That's kind of a weird teaser, but just hang with me and let's get through this and then we'll come back. All right, cool. Alright, so if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you might recognize this as the upstairs of my house. So we actually just got done playing Unsettled, me and my gaming group, and we finally won. It was the 3rd time we played, and admittedly I think that we kind of obviously used the information that we gathered from the first couple plays, where the planet we landed on totally kicked our butts, and then we used that knowledge to pull off the win in this one, which I'll talk about some of that in my final thoughts, actually, but we definitely got our fun out of this one. So since we just finished, I figured this is kind of, admittedly, I had a cat come up here and run and knock some things around, so the board might not be exactly as we left it, but this is pretty close. Now, I don't want to go too far into like what this particular planet, the challenges were, anything like that, just basically because I want to be able, for you, when you get the game, you'll be able to experience it with as little knowledge as possible, which is what Unsettled, I think, is going for. It's like, hey, here's this crazy new planet you're on. What's it going to be doing to try to basically take your life? It might not be malicious, you just might be something that shouldn't be there, right? It isn't made for you, kind of thing. So very quickly, I just want to kind of go over the mechanisms that you'll be doing as you play the game. Each explorer will be represented by a disc or a miniature, I guess, when the game is published, but for me it was a disc. And at the beginning, you just have your crash ship right there, and then you will start to pick these different places that you'll go, and these places will be drawn randomly. There's a stack of these locations. Each one, when you go into it, sometimes there will be like a thing when entering, gain a condition. I'll talk about conditions here in a little bit, and sometimes they'll have those, and there will be some resources that are available. The resources come. There's 3 different resources you keep track of. You keep track of these these crystals, which are like resources, like minerals. There is data, which is represented by those blue cubes, and there's power. Now, you don't gain power, at least on this planet, right? You don't gain power by being out on the board. You gain power basically by working in the ship, and I should mention that a lot of these things you have to be in the presence of. If you want to collect these little green crystals, your explorer has to be in there, and you take the action to collect that resource. In order to get the data, it's kind of interesting. You have this Luna, this robot, and you'll have to move Luna to these locations, and then the Luna will analyze the situation and collect that data, and then it like gets uploaded into your main computer banks. Then you're able to use those particular things. Power is just something that you are cycling the power on your ship, and so like there's a negative location for power and a positive location. So each time you charge power, you will just move the power into that location, and as you spend it, it moves back into the negative. So it's kind of like, think of like you're just like revving the engine or whatever and trying to gain that power. To take actions on your turn, you will be using, and this might be a little bit difficult to see, but on your character board, you will have these dice here, and I'll just show you this one up close, and you can see as soon as it comes into focus for me here, there are 3 pips there. And then over here you have 2 pips, and then you have 1 pip, and then you have this, which is a time symbol. Now, depending upon what action you take, you will raise and lower those pips on those dice, depending upon what the actions take. And it might be difficult to see, but like to do like an investigate action, it tells you that there's 1 green downward arrow. So if you are on, you don't roll these dice, they're just they mark what you have. So if you did the investigate action, you'd move that to there, so you have 2 points of that power left. Now, it is important to note that whenever you do get down to your time symbol like this, that does not prevent you from taking actions using that die. What that does is that basically, if you decide to take those actions, you have to move the time track down each time you take an action that would normally, if you had available resources to take that action, you move this down. Now, there's a couple things on the time track, and I'll talk about this a little bit, but when you hit this spot, you have to have an opportunity, which are these cards here, and I'll talk about those in just a little bit. But the big one is that if you hit this bottom button here, you actually hit, and it is considered to be a loss of endurance. And so you're going to lose endurance. Everybody loses endurance as time goes by. That's kind of like to represent the fact that the planet is not, the more time you're spending on the planet, the more like strength, your endurance is weakening. And the planet can actually take you out. Oh, and I should mention also, on this track here, there's a trust track. Certain actions will allow you to raise your trust. Certain actions will lower your trust. One of the big things is like you can like support other players and stuff like that, and that will increase their trust. That's like a support action that's right there. You know, and support will actually remove a condition off somebody else if you do that support. You get bonuses by gaining like +2 focus, and these are your focuses here, and so you get to increase them if you are able to increase your trust even higher. If your trust keeps going further down, the people aren't working together, you're going to start losing endurance again because nobody's working together. One of the cool things I really like is on your board, you have a couple things you can do, like you can do an advise action that allows you to give another person a +1 focus that they can use to increase their dies. Because normally when you spend these, you don't get to increase them unless you do certain actions on the board or somebody else helps you, or you take this rest action, which is here, which automatically pushes your your focus in the selected die up to 3. Now the thing is that you might have multiple dice that you've used up, and you can take like another rest action like this to increase that one up there as well, but then that actually lowers your trust because of the fact that it kind of like symbolizes the fact that you're supposed to be working on trying to save everybody, but you're sleeping it off, right? And people aren't trusting you to be, trying as hard as you possibly can to get people off of this planet, and so people can survive. So each planet, as you probably know, is going to have a different goal that you're going to have. Like in this one, like you'll have certain goals, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but like you'll have certain things like you need to repair the CO2 scrubber. Which it needs to be done so you can do it, and so like you can and it'll each tell you what you have to do. You have to get fabricate a molecular sieve or fabricate an alternative CO2 processor. You have to do certain actions to satisfy that. On the board itself, you'll have things like, here's this molecular sieve, where you'll go to this location and it'll tell you what you have to do in order to collect this. You have to have a requirement, have one or more of these specialties, and then these will be represented by these discs here. Now you gain these specialties by doing research, and like in this case, for this, you have to get your research hut out there and go there, and then you can gain a specialty in research. And in order to build the research hut, you have to take the actions that are associated with these boards over here. I'm kind of all over the place here, but once again, I don't want to tell you exactly the whole basis of this planet, it being this weird fungus covered toadstool weird spore planet that you land on. But ultimately what's going to happen is you'll have certain tasks that you have to complete. And one of the tasks we had eventually was we had to put these pylons down. And the pylons are these navigational pylons that will allow us to figure out how to get off of this planet and get home. And so that's one of the major things we have to do. And there's some other stuff again. And again, if you wanted to pause this video and really zoom in, you could probably figure some things out. But I'm not trying to tell you exactly how each turn goes and how everything works. I'm just trying to give you some of the things that I think are really neat. One of the things I think is really cool is these little time tokens that are on the sides of these locations you can go to that are on there but aren't on each and every one. Now, a lot of games, when you move to a different place, you're told to draw a hex or a box or whatever, and you get to orient it the way you want to on the board. Well, the cool thing with this is that each one is oriented the exact same way. You can see all these are lined up. They have this portion over here, they have that portion over there, and they have to go like that. And as the planet gets created, these time locations will determine if you travel, and you travel to a spot. Now this is one that's a little bit confusing. It took me a while to grok this, but when you travel to a spot, you look and see how you got there. You can't take diagonal movements, it's orthogonal movements, because you went from here to here, you look for this, and then that would be a time unit, whereas from here to here would cost nothing. Now, because time is your biggest enemy. Time is what causes people to lose endurance, and when you lose endurance, you gain conditions, and so on and so forth. A whole bunch of bad things. Conditions can happen lots of different ways. The flora and fauna of this planet definitely played havoc. When you get a condition, there'll just be something negative, like this one says unstable. At the beginning of your turn, decrease one focus by 2 and increase a different focus by 1. But if you place one of your die in that location, you can ignore those effects if you want to do that. So conditions are random. You can cure conditions, and that's how like you do the support action. You can cure somebody of their conditions. Another thing that's kind of cool is that each player they'll get 2 of these white boards, and you can notice like there's this board here. Now the back of these boards has like an effect. So these have to do with your trust. So when your trust is in the positive, you're effective. You may place focus on opportunities without decreasing it. That's obviously very good. Domineering. Other players may not speak on your turn. So this isn't like truly a game effect, but other people can't talk when you are doing what you're doing. Now, it's not necessarily, in some of these cases, sometimes the lower trust is actually helpful for some of the players. The reverse side is actually more helpful than the positive side. You can lose this, in fact, if you were able to gain like so many conditions and you go down to being just straight desperate. And desperate is not good. It is not a good thing to be in. You don't want that to happen. You get 3 of these spots on your board that will have the ability to place either conditions or anomalies. When you are able to analyze the things that are on the board, you can gain anomalies, which are these cards here. And anomalies are something positive, like hyperkinetic emissions ignore 1 time on each turn. So like if you were supposed to go down at a time, you could say, I'm just not going, here, I'll see, you can actually read that if I can get it to focus. There you go. So ignore a time each turn. And you can see like that's a rare polymers one. So that's something that you'd have to find a rare polymers on the board to be able to like have that. So there's like cool things like that. I mean, ultimately what this game is about is exploring the planet that you're on, and then trying to satisfy the conditions over here that will allow you to escape, but while also like spending as little time as possible on the planet, getting your research hut, your workshop, and your laboratory out there. And you know, not everyone's going to have these pylons, I can only assume, since this is the only planet that I've played. Over here is where you'll take a lot of your actions as well. Like here's the construct laboratory, and you'll notice that there are locations, anything that has like this weird like kind of circle on there with the ridges, that's where you can build these things. And that's like where the laboratory, the workshop, and the research hut are. That's like kind of like the first goal you have, because each one of those is important to be built out on this so you can do bigger and better things. Later on, you will be like using technology and you'll be gaining more powers. These 3 cards that are each one of this, only one of them is available and available to be used at any time, but as you get more research and accomplish more things on the planet, and once again, I don't want to go too deep into this because I want you to like kind of experience the narrative and the flow of the game on your own. You'll be able to then like have bigger and better things available to you as the game progresses. And this is one of those things where you're leveraging time against spending resources to be able to accomplish different things. Expertises that you gain, these little circles, are very, very important because they unlock different abilities. And like there's a lot of times you'll get something if you have a, you know, like a orange expertise, you can do this, and so on and so forth. Now, probably the coolest thing of the game, and this is just kind of speaks to my Arkham horror roots, if you will, there are opportunities. You might have noticed that there's these little triangles on the bottom of almost all of the locations that they say they've been investigated. When you investigate something, or when the time track is forced to go into this location right there, you draw an opportunity, whoever's turn it is, and you hand it to the person on their left. And the person on their left will read the opportunity to them and present them an option. This is kind of like, I can't even think of the name of the game right now, where you would hand the person the card on the left and they read it out loud for you. And why the zombie game? I can't think of it. I'll think of it like probably later on, or somebody will mentioned it to me. But like, here's one, and I'll just kind of show this one. I don't want to show a lot of these, or I'll just show one. Translucent mega worm. A worm the size of your arm slurps out of the soil and across your boots. Translucent skin revealing a grotesque tangle of organs. Your senses explode as you find yourself hugging the worm with no intention of ever letting go. When revealed, the active explorer becomes engaged, discards all inventory. I should mention inventory is usually these things over here, these elixirs and salves and inhalants that you'll use that'll allow you to do certain things, like the pearlescent time inhalant. When you consume it, you can ignore up to 2 times and things like that. So those are important. But if you have those and you've created them, this slug would make you drop them. And so and then while engaged, so then the character becomes engaged. I mean, they carry this with them. Engaged player cannot gain inventory. Engaged player gains +1 focus at the start of their turn. So it's like, kind of like a good and a bad thing. And then this is a mandatory, this must be completed, knock explorer to the ground. So there's like another entire different thing that you're going to have to take care of as far as that is concerned. And there's some, let me just dig around until I can get through and find one. Some of them will like be these fleeting opportunities, which will be something that affects like everybody, and there's something that you have to like negotiate and handle. And so investigating can give you great boons, but it also can hurt you as well. And I always like the mysterious drawing the thing and figuring out like, is it good, is it bad, what are you gonna do? And it's kind of neat having the person to your left read it out loud, and then you know, because even though like sometimes there'll be choices that you make, but I think it's always better for character engagement that like somebody else reads it to you, and like so you can kind of like get into the idea of like that scene in the movie or that scene in the game actually occurs and happens, and so you can go through that process. So I think I've kind of touched on everything. Like I said, the biggest thing about this game is that on your turn you'll be moving these cubes to these different locations and taking the actions that are there. Some of the actions are repeatable. They'll have like this little icon below that, meaning you can keep doing it over and over again. You'll be doing it to collect the resources necessary to take care of certain tasks, and then at the end of your turn, after you've done everything, you move your cubes back up into the ready action, and that alerts the player to your left that it is now their turn, and they can go through the process of taking their actions and choosing what they want to do. The only thing I haven't touched on is that you have 2 movement ability on your turn, meaning you can go from one space. Sometimes that'll get adjusted for different reasons, but I won't go into those because those are story-based reasons. The movement has nothing to do with the time. So if you move through a spot that has 2 time, it's just that just takes up 2 time, but it's still 1 movement. So that's something also to keep in mind. I also should mention that like you have the ability to traverse. Like if you want to, you can take another movement, which would be another 2 points of movement, which you can move like lots of space quickly. And I invite you to go to the Kickstarter page. You can read the rules if you want to like delve deeper into this. But the best part about this game is the fact that each one of these planets is going to be a different experience. Each one of these planets is going to be a different puzzle that you have to figure out. And these puzzles are brutal. And the storylines they give you and kind of the narrative of the planet is fantastic. And like I said, we played this one 3 times until we finally beat it, and we really didn't feel like we were retreading old information. I mean, because there was enough of these opportunities for us to deal with, and because the planet is generated randomly each time, you couldn't expect it to be a certain way or a certain process or anything like that. So just a heck of a lot of fun, but I'll dive deeper into those reasons in my final thoughts. All right, so there you go. I don't have a box. I don't have a game box. The prototype was sent to me in like a plain white box, so I'm sorry I don't have anything to show you. But go ahead and check out some of the artwork with the Kickstarter link that's listed there, and dive deep, if you will. Like I said, you can go check out the rules if you want, and the people at Orange Nebula actually have their own videos and what have you. Here's the deal, and I know that there's been a lot of people waiting for a video for this, and I apologize. I mean, like, I only got this about a week or so ago, and like sometimes it's tough to track down my gaming group and get them all together, but we got together. And here's the thing, my gaming group, games are a really hard sell for them. I got 2 guys named Andy, and I got 1 guy named Craig, and those are that's my gaming group that I foist these games upon. And it's usually like, I mean, back in the day when we first started playing games, like we played Arkham Horror, we played Battlestar Galactica, and there were like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 games we played all the time. After I really started getting into the whole video review thing, I would get these new games and then I would be like, okay, hey, we're gonna learn this new game, and then we'd play it like once, maybe twice, and then I'd kind of get my thoughts about the game underneath my feet, and they'd be like, okay, well, now we'll never play this game again because I'm gonna move on to the next game, and because I got to do a video for it. And so one of the things that I wanted to start stressing is I wanted to play games more. I wanted to like play games and get a deeper grasp, a deeper feel for these games before I did these videos. So that's why we ended up playing it 3 times. And here's the thing, as I said, it's a tough sell for my gaming group. This was a game that, like, my buddy Craig, he's a bit of a curmudgeon, and he tends to like, I'm no, like he would say, I'm no art critic, but I know what I hate. You know, he's kind of the same thing. He doesn't create games, but he knows what he hates. And it's tough to get him to play games again if he has a bad feeling about a game. But the first time we played it, we got crushed, and we didn't succeed, and he was like, I really like this. I like what this game is doing. Let's play again. So we didn't play again right then and there. We waited, and then we waited for a weekend, and then we played it again, and we lost, and we said, hey, we got the game set up, or let's play it one more time. And so I had my 2 Andys, and I had my Craig, and I had me, and we played it twice, and then the third time, we beat it. Now, I don't think this game is really designed for what we did. I think this game is designed to have this really, really cool new planet, this really cool new setting that the basic mechanisms of the game get inserted into. It's like here you have like a cartridge, right? And you kind of insert the cartridge into the planet box, and the planet just kind of comes alive, and you start to explore that planet. Now, not knowing what any of the other planets are going to be, or how they're going to work, or anything like that, and what the narratives of those are going to be, I can only guess. But I do know that the minds behind Orange Nebula and the games that they've created with Vindication and the expansion, and now this, I do really feel they're very, very imaginative, and I can only imagine that they're going to create really, really cool little planets, cool little worlds that we'll be able to really dive into and experience. And I have a lot of faith in that. Now, proof's in the pudding, of course. You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the rest of the planets could suck for all I know. But this one planet, this one spore, fungus, weird plant planet that we were on, it was really fun, and I feel bad that I can't really, I just don't want to like tell you everything that goes on in there, because it's kind of like opening up a book and like starting to read it. You don't want somebody popping in and saying, oh, hey, you know what happens is this, right? You don't want that to happen. And so it was just kind of neat how the planet was affecting us, but also like different things in the planet would like change us, like mutate us, I guess. But those mutations weren't always bad. They were actually something that like we were able to then work with the planet, and the planet would like it would for lack of a better term, it would like recognize us as something it wanted to feed or protect or take care of, instead of being some sort of invader into the planet. And that was kind of a cool little thing, and we kind of learned that as the game progressed. So, you know, and I can only imagine, like I said, like whatever other planets they create, you know, I mean, that it'll be the same thing. And also, obviously, and I usually hate this in videos, but like, oh, this game could have tons of expansions and tons of things that they could create and make for this game. Now, well, that's like, who knows if that'll ever happen, right? Who knows if there's going to be tons of new expansions or whatever. But the bottom line is that you easily could just create more boxes to put that cartridge into, right? And then play this planet, play that planet. I mean, like you could have other designers, you know, step in and say, oh, hey, I've got this narrative, this idea for this planet. I mean, even I got like, oh, wouldn't that be a cool planet if it was like, you know, some sort of ice planet, you know, like the Hoth or whatever. Or what if there was like a planet that you landed on and there was two alien races having like a civil war, and like you had to, you know, figure out how to navigate between those two. And I was like thinking of all these different possibilities. And these are probably ideas that people at Orange Nebula have already thought of. But ultimately, it's like one of those things where, you know, that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what they could possibly create. What matters is what I played. And what I played was extremely immersive, extremely narrative, extremely fun, and like, and as my curmudgeon-y friend Craig said, this is really cool. This is really, I like what this is doing. I like that I am like figuring out this world. I'm figuring out what's going on, and he really dug it, and that was weird. I mean, that for me to like experience somebody that I know like just tears apart games as we play, like, oh, this shouldn't happen, we should do this, we should change that. I mean, he's always like the guy who's like, oh, I think that, you know, we should only get 3 actions per turn or something like that. You know, like, and I always be like, you know, this game's been play tested like hundreds of times. You didn't just stumble upon this and figure out something better. I try to impress that upon him, but he just doesn't listen. But you get what I'm saying. For him to be impressed was really something that struck me, because he never is like that. Now, I said something like, this is going to be a game that a lot of people are going to say, like, oh, this is cool. I mean, everybody I know that's like played Vindication says this game's really, really cool. And there's a lot of reviewers out there who put that in their top games of the year, that had very, very nice things to say about it. But it's one of those things too where I go over to people's houses that I know and they don't own a copy. It isn't in their collection. And I think that every once in a while there are a few games every year that are reviewer darlings, if you will. Like, the people that play it, they're like, oh my gosh, this game is, oh, it's so amazing, you know? Like, I can remember a long, long time ago, before it was Biblios, there was a game called Scripts and Scribes, which was Biblios. But there was like only like a handful of copies out there. It was tough to track down, but everybody who had it said it was amazing. It was so cool. And Biblios is a very, very good game. I mean, go track that down. It has nothing to do with this at all. But that was a game that anybody who had played Scripts and Scribes, like, referenced it as being this fantastic game. And that was one of those things where it was a reviewer darling of a game, but it just wasn't in a lot of collections. Now, this is kind of a different thing. This was like, maybe like a game like Vast that came out, oh, what is it now, 3 years ago? I mean, I may be, but, like this whole asymmetrical cave with all these different competing factions, and each one had a different winning strategy and so on and so forth. And people that, like, it was one of those things where, because it was so different, because it was kind of like, I hate to say cutting edge, but because it just kind of eschewed the general expectations of the board game world, people referenced it as being, ooh, you know, this is cool because it was different, and lots of people said this is a great game, but you couldn't find people that actually had played it, right? It was a tough thing to find. And I think that Unsettled is going to end up being one of these things that, like, if people own it and they play it and they put their time into it, they're all going to say, this game's freaking fantastic. I can't believe that they've made a game that's this engaging, that's this fun, that has both the social dynamic of the people at the table, it has a cool narrative, it has these cool little, each time you play with a different planet, it's going to be a totally new experience. It's going to take the mechanisms that are pretty straightforward, to be blunt. This game is about resource management, it's about time management, and time is technically a resource. So it's just a bunch of resource management and working together to solve the puzzle and figure out how to solve things out. And there were a few clunky parts, and I think there's still some ironing out. I mean, I didn't like that when we got towards the end, and you know, my friends are very analytical. They were like, okay, we're going to have to do this, and this, and it's going to cost us this time. We've got the game won. Like, because they figured out that this is how much time it was going to take for each of us to do our things and get things accomplished, and like we were going to have enough time left over. And I kind of, that kind of like made me feel, I don't like that. It just didn't fit into the story, right? But I don't think you can really avoid that. You know, it's just what it is. But here's the bottom line, is that this is a game that I think a lot of people are going to like. A lot of like people in the media, people that review games are going to say this game's really amazing, and this is a game that people are going to have it, and it's going to be one of those things that I think they might be a little bit intimidated by the fact that you're going to have all these different planets, and like because I think people like the safeness of like, oh hey, I got a cat over there going crazy attacking something. But a lot of people will like, I think they like the safeness of a game that's just it's the same thing each time they play, right? I think there's a lot of that. But what I think is that I don't think people like the modular thing really well. I think they tend to avoid like, you know, input this to do that. I mean, that's fine for an expansion, but not like the base game. But I'll tell you this much, I'm super jazzed and super excited to see what the next planets are going to be. I'm really excited for my two Andys and Craig to sit down and play that with me, and we can play that planet 2, 3, 4 times until we figure out how to solve it, and then we can open up, we can take another planet and we can insert the cartridge and play again. And I think that if you like cooperative games and you like this kind of sci-fi sense of exploration and wonder and terror and all those things put together, I think you're really going to enjoy it as well. And if you play games solo, I think you could definitely play this game solo. You'd have to play 2 or 3 different players at the same time. But I think if you're a solo game player, I mean, and I thought about that, would this really work? I mean, some of the social aspects of the traits, like, oh, you can't talk during my turn, things like that wouldn't really work. But you could pick and choose those, right? And you could make sure that like the traits that they have game effects, not social effects, and make that thing. And I think you could still really, really enjoy it playing the game solo. Just like I know people who play Time Stories solo and just really enjoy it to kind of see the game evolve. So there you go. Those are my thoughts about Unsettled. Take it or leave it. I think that this is definitely going to be a game that people are going to want to play it. They're going to like go to somebody's house. It's kind of like when you go to somebody's house and they got the really cool video game machine or something like that, and you're going to go there and you say, this is freaking awesome, I love playing this video game or whatever, but you don't have the system at home, and you're going to go home and you're going to be like, I want to play those other planets, and then you're going to be like, oh, I wish I backed the Kickstarter. But I'm all in on the Kickstarter. I'm super jazzed to see the other creations from Orange Nebula, and I think that if you like sci-fi, you like cooperative games, if you like games that are going to tell you a story, I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. So if you have any questions about the game, ask away. I'll try to answer those spoiler-free as much as I possibly can. As always, thank you very much for taking time to watch this video, and until next time, don't forget to be awesome. Be the best version of you that you possibly can be. I'll do the same. You are awesome. I'm the Undead Viking. I'll talk to you soon.